the philosophy of all of the food at the art school and the way I think of food, it's all ingredient led. So if I go to the shops or the market or wherever where I'm buying the vegetables and the choice of meat, I mean, at the moment, obviously we're just in the lamb season now. It's just starting the spring lamb. So if you weren't going for the probably the nation's favorite is chicken or beef, isn't it? I would say, which I adore as well, and I'll give you a couple of tips on that as well. But lamb is definitely the one that's in season at the moment, and we're very lucky in Merseyside that we have incredible supply chain for the best, probably some of the best lamb in the country. The one I use is from Callum Edge, and it's called Blackface Suffolk is the name of the breed. And what happens to these little guys is they're born in St Asaph in North Wales, about, I don't know, 25, 30 miles away from here. And then they're brought up to the Wirral on Burton Marsh, where the sort of Dee estuary touches the Wirral Peninsula. And they're finished out on the marsh there. And so they have a sort of salt marsh flavour to them because they're nibbling away on samphire and beach grass that is quite salty. So in a funny way, that, you know, that, well, it's not a funny way, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? If that's what they're eating, then they have an amazing flavour characteristic when we come to eat them. So that one of my favourite things is if we get the time, Helen and Harry aren't massive red meat eaters, but otherwise we'd probably have more lamb and beef, but I do occasionally do it. And it's a leg of lamb. So what you do is you make little piercings, if you like, into the skin of the lamb, just with a sharp knife. Just make maybe 12 holes, if you like, and pierce the skin. And inside each one, we put a little half clove of garlic and a tuft of rosemary in each one. And in French classical cookery, you'd also put a fillet of anchovy in each one as well, because the saltiness and the sort of slight saline fishy flavour goes really well with salt marsh in particular. And that was a way of sort of enhancing and bringing out those. So you have to think of the anchovy as a seasoning rather than just a piece of little fish that you see when you have some tapas or something. And then we just put a little bit of olive oil on the skin, some sea salt, cracked black pepper. But then the tip that I would give to all Sunday roasts is that when you put the joint itself into the roasting tin to go in the oven, you sit it on a bed of root vegetables. So you'd have carrot, celery, leek, onion, possibly a little bit more garlic, possibly some more rosemary. If it was lamb, you'd use thyme. If it was beef, you'd use sage and possibly rosemary if it was chicken. And you adapt what's called a trivet, or a trivet, I suppose, in English. And these root vegetables give you a base to sit the meat on. And then what happens is, as you're roasting in the oven, the juices and the fats that come out of the joint of meat or the bird, and they go into the flavors go into the root vegetables. And then what happens is we take the joint off those vegetables and let it rest on a carving board with some foil on. The resting is very, very important with lamb and beef in particular, but also with chicken, because otherwise the juice just flies out everywhere if you cut it when it's too hot. You almost need to give it, half an hour, 40 minutes resting time to let everything calm down, and then the juice is retained in the meat itself. But what happens with the trivet is then you put the roasting tin back on the heat, you pour some wine. So if it was a chicken, you'd use a white wine. Lamb, I'd probably go with something like Rioja, a little bit spicy. And you pour that into the root vegetables and bring it back to the heat. And then strain that juice out into the pan, and that becomes your jus for the gravy, if you like. If you want to thicken it, you can. But what happens is, because you've got all those flavors from the roasting process, plus the flavors of the vegetables and the herbs and the wine, the sauce that comes off that is absolutely fantastic, and that's your perfect sauce for the Sunday roast. So whatever meat you're doing, as long as you do the trivet, that would be the way to go. So as I say, some people like a thickened gravy, some people like to reduce it, and if it's a little bit fatty, you just skim the fat off the top with a ladle, and you've got a perfect sauce then. So it's a good tip, that the trivet is well worth doing, even though you don't use those vegetables at the end, because you want the goodness out in the sauce. So there you go.